Welcome back to Hardware Unboxed. It's time for another monitor review. Today we're looking at the Gigabyte KD25F, which is one of those rare monitors that doesn't have alphabet soup as its name. KD25F, it's easy to say and remember, so good job Gigabyte. This is the second Gigabyte monitor to hit the market after the AD27QD I reviewed earlier this year. It's a super high refresh display using one of the new generation TN panels that claims to hit sub 1 millisecond response times. Gigabyte have given this monitor a 0.5 millisecond MPRT response time rating. MPRT is usually a little bit of a red flag, but we'll see how it fares in testing a few minutes from now. Regardless, anything below 1 millisecond is quicker than anything we've seen from LCDs before. For other specs, we're getting a 240Hz refresh rate, 1920 by 1080 resolution, and 24.5 inches of screen real estate. So this monitor is definitely geared towards your top-end 1080p gamers, those who play fast-paced competitive shooters, and really need the edge in terms of refresh rate, input latency, and responsiveness. I've spoken a little bit before about how, to me, the upgrade from 144Hz to 240Hz isn't all that massive. I can definitely feel a difference in responsiveness, but it's not as huge as, say, jumping from 75Hz to 144Hz. But at the same time, I'm not a hardcore competitive gamer, so I'm sure there are people out there that are much more sensitive to the higher refresh rate that will benefit from the step up to 240Hz. It's also worth pointing out that the KD25F includes FreeSync support with low frame rate compensation. Gigabyte's website for this monitor says it's also G-Sync compatible, although I'm running the latest NVIDIA drivers and it doesn't seem to have reached NVIDIA's whitelist yet. Regardless, even without official support at this stage, Adaptive Sync works perfectly with NVIDIA GPUs. As for the design, with the KD25F, Gigabyte have gone with reasonably heavy gamer elements, not as over the top as say your ASUS or MSI monitors, but certainly this is not a subtle design. The rear is where you'll find Gigabyte's Wings of Excellence design concept, which is basically this aggressive angular layout with integrated RGB LEDs. You'll also find RGB LEDs in the stand, both on the back and sides. You can't see any of these RGB lights from the front, so make of that what you will. Luckily, the KD25F actually looks pretty good from the front. The wide metal stand is extremely sturdy and there's little wobble in the design, but it still manages an impressive range of motion, including 130mm of height adjustment plus tilt, swivel, and pivoting. The monitor overall is also really well built and uses decent materials. To me, this is a premium construction in line with other high-end monitors. We're getting a good range of ports, 2 HDMI 2.0, 1 DisplayPort, a couple of audio jacks, and a USB hub. The on-screen display is controlled through a directional toggle, which I like to see, and it packs in all the same features as the AD27QD, which is to say lots and lots of features that rivals the best gaming monitors on the market. The best feature to me is definitely the inclusion of active noise cancellation for your headset microphone, which still works well here and I think is well suited to this sort of competitive focused display. On top of that, we get cheat crosshairs, timers, counters, shadow boosting modes, a dashboard mode to show PC statistics, and of course a backlight strobing mode as well, which Gigabyte calls aim stabilizer. All of this can be controlled with the D-pad on the monitor or through Gigabyte's OSD Sidekick application for your PC. For a new entrant to the monitor market, this feature set is impressive. Let's get into some performance numbers and we'll start with response times. There are 3 different overdrive modes available, and what we're looking at here is the first mode called picture quality, which presumably is overdrive disabled. The monitor here isn't particularly fast for a TN, but there is no overshoot. The default mode is called balanced, and there's a noticeable speed uplift here at 240Hz while maintaining a low error rate. In fact, to achieve a 3.11 millisecond gray-to-gray average here with no errors above 15% and an average error rate of just 0.5% is very impressive. 240Hz is an aggressive refresh rate window target, but thanks to the TN panel, the balanced mode delivers a good 240Hz experience with 76% of transitions within that window and 93% get very close to it. The speed mode is the fastest overdrive mode, and while this does take response times down to a 1.53 millisecond gray-to-gray average, with some transitions as fast as 0.3 milliseconds, overshoot becomes a significant problem. With 46% of transitions reporting an error above 15%, this mode has lots of inverse ghosting problems, so I wouldn't recommend using it. Of course, none of these three modes hit a 0.5 millisecond grey to grey average, but the rated response time metric that manufacturers give rarely refers to this average. When looking at individual transitions, the speed mode does offer several transitions that hit 0.5 milliseconds or faster, while the more usable balanced mode also has sub 1 millisecond transitions. So is this a 0.5 millisecond response time monitor? Well, not on the average, but looking at peak numbers, you would have to say yes. How does this stack up to other monitors? Well, a 3.11 millisecond grey to grey average puts it up the top end of the chart along with some other high performance TN panels. The main comparison here is to the other 240Hz monitor in my test data, the LG 27GK750F, which I guess is a bit different because it's a 27-inch panel. Nevertheless, the LG option is 0.5 milliseconds faster on average, but interestingly, the KD25F's best and worst transitions were both faster than the LG, so the Gigabyte monitor is more consistent in its response time output. For average dark level, this is a TN panel, so there's no dark level smearing. And then for refresh rate compliance, we again see the KD25F clocking in at 93%, a little lower than the LG option, but still decent for a 240Hz experience. But where the KD25F really impresses is in its error handling. To achieve a 3.11 millisecond response time with just a 0.5% average error is chart-topping performance. The 27GK750F, for example, does hit 2.58 milliseconds on average, but to do that, it delivers an average overshoot and undershoot of 6.2%. The Acer KG251QF, another fast display, also gets bogged down by a higher error rate. This level of performance is highlighted further by looking at inverse ghosting under the 15-15 rule. 0% of transitions had overshoot or undershoot higher than 15%, which is miles better than most high refresh panels. The LG monitor is up around 13%, for example. To put this in perspective further, if we set the 27GK750F to an overdrive mode that delivers equivalent error performance to the Gigabyte KD25F, it drops to a 3.84 millisecond grey to grey average, and with only 73% of transitions quick enough to deliver a 240Hz experience. So there's no doubt whatsoever that the Gigabyte KD25F is overall a better performing monitor. If you're planning to use this display at 60Hz for whatever reason, I'd recommend sticking with the balanced mode. There are a few oddly slow transitions here, and that takes the overall average out to 4.39 milliseconds, but it's still a decent result overall, and you can't make it faster by using the speed mode without again introducing significant overshoot. For input lag, the KD25F is fast, clocking in at the top of the charts, but it's not especially quick. I was actually expecting a slightly better result here. With a lag time of 4.92 milliseconds, this indicates a processing time of around 2.8 milliseconds plus 2.1 milliseconds from the refresh rate. Compare that to something like the 32GK650F, which has 4.2 milliseconds of input lag, of which less than 1 millisecond is processing lag. Not a big deal in the end though, because when you factor in the response times, the KD25F is the fastest overall monitor in these charts for input latency. For brightness, Gigabyte lists 400 nits peak, and when calibrated, I achieved 390 nits, a good showing and brighter than most people will need. However, a contrast ratio of just 800:1 is not great. That's a weaker number among TN panels. Contrast, as well as viewing angles, which are poor as expected from the KD25F, continues to be the main weak spot for TNs. You really have to view this monitor dead on to get a good color experience. And while horizontal viewing angles are okay, it's any shift in vertical angle that kills colors. Fine for gaming, not suitable for color accurate work. When looking at default color performance, the KD25F is adequate. Out of the box, my unit was slightly too cool with a CCT average of 6811K, although gamma performance was decent. A grayscale Delta E average of 3.34 is a mid-tier performance, but pretty good for a TN panel. Moving on to saturation, we actually get decent numbers here in that Delta E range of between 2.0 and 3.0, which I think is fine for a gaming grade panel, and that continues with a color checker average of 2.64. Without any wide gamut support, there's no need to configure this panel out of the box to conform to sRGB, and that's why it succeeds here with good performance. In fact, if you look at the chart comparing factory calibration, the KD25F is near the top, close to the monitors that deliver sub 2.0 Delta E's, which are most of the super high-end offerings. Performance can be improved through a few OSD tweaks. You can see my configured settings on the screen here. Mostly this involves bringing back contrast slightly to improve top-end performance, and then fixing the white point. From here, I achieved a Delta E average of below 2.0 in both grayscale and saturation, which is a good result. However, color checker only improves slightly, so it's clear that for the best results, we need to do a full calibration. And as is usually the case, this brings everything under a Delta E average of 2.0 comfortably. If you want the ICC profile we created for this monitor, that is available for our Patreon members, links in the description. However, as we always mention, due to panel variances, there is no guarantee the ICC profile we create will be suitable for your monitor. It's always best to calibrate yourself. Here you can see the impact from calibration to contrast, which is a mid-table result that's not too bad for a TN panel. Peak brightness, however, does fall more aggressively than other monitors. I achieved well over 400 nits out of the box, but as I mentioned before, with calibration that's just under 390 nits, not that this is a huge deal. Uniformity is good, with most of the key central zone falling within a Delta E of 2.0 relative to the center. The outer sides as well as the bottom edge does fall away a little bit. There is a slight vignette effect with this monitor around those edges, but it's not too bad unless you're viewing a solid image. In any case, these gaming class monitors don't always have the best uniformity, but this one is decent. How about backlight bleed? Well, it's a TN, so native black levels won't be amazing, as you can see here, but generally bleed isn't too bad. There aren't many bad hotspots with my review unit, and really I couldn't notice any problems during normal usage in a dark room. And finally, we have power consumption. 24-inch TN displays don't consume much power. The 240Hz refresh rate does seem to add on a bit versus 144Hz, but we're still coming in better than the power requirements of a similar VA if this matters to you. Overall, this is a great monitor in terms of its hardware package. I was really impressed with the response time performance, delivering a 3 millisecond gray to gray average with no noticeable errors, puts it at basically the best performing monitor I've tested when factoring in the high 240Hz refresh rate, response times, error, and input latency. Advertising a 0.5 millisecond response time is perhaps pushing it a bit, but I can overlook that when comparatively it performs well. Factory calibration is better than expected as well, although we are still getting standard TN issues like poor viewing angles and a low native contrast ratio. But if you're buying a super fast TN panel, you'll be buying it for its refresh rate performance, not its color performance generally speaking. Then we have all the rest of the features that Gigabyte provide, like everything in the OSD from active noise cancellation to backlight strobing. There's also a very adjustable stand, which I like, plus RGB LED lighting if you're into that sort of thing. It's a really good package overall. The problem with it though is the same problem Gigabyte faced with the AD27QD, and that's the launch price. $500 is simply too much to spend on the KD25F. This might have been a good price when 240Hz monitors first launched, but not now. Competitors from MSI, AOC, and ASUS are all under $400, some as low as $330. I could justify spending a little bit more than that given the KD25F is a great performer and has loads of features, but we're talking about more like a $150 difference, which is simply too high in my opinion. With that said, the AD27QD did drop in price relatively quickly after launch by around $100, which made it much more competitive, and I expect something similar to happen with the KD25F. So if you're watching this several months after I publish it and the price has come down, or it's simply a good price in your region, I'd definitely be considering it because it's a good product. Just right now, it's a bit too expensive. That's it for this review. Plenty more monitor reviews coming up over the next few weeks, so subscribe for that. Consider supporting us on Patreon if you want access to stuff like our behind the scenes videos and Discord community, and we'll catch you in the next one.